Dungeons and Dragons is complicated, especially when you're just learning the game, but this short beginner adventure and rules guide, Peril in Pinebrook, is an excellent free resource, but I still wouldn't call it perfect. So let's go over it together. Because I'm Bob, this is where we learn how to have more fun playing RPGs together, and if you want to follow along, you can download the PDF through the link in the description. But first, my biggest complaint, the PDF is abnormally slow, for me anyway, so I printed it out. 3 pages covering the core simplified rules of D&D. Nice. 1 page explaining how the Dungeon Master should introduce this adventure to the other players. Then 8 pages covering the adventure itself, broken into 6 10-minute scenes called encounters. A fun handout of words translated into D&D's dragon language. Then 4 brilliantly simple, pre-made playable characters with a 1-page player reference sheet of terms and rules and a little paragraph of tips for new players. So, welcome to Dungeons & Dragons Peril in Pinebrook. This page describes the basics of D&D, a collaborative storytelling and role-playing game. Each player takes on the role of an adventuring character, but one player, the Dungeon Master, acts as the lead storyteller, the keeper of secrets, and the referee. So in my previous video, which is a super fun, interactive, choose-your-own adventure style D&D tutorial, you're the hero, and I'm the DM. But now, we're preparing you to be the DM, one step at a time. It's really quite simple. Get pencils, paper, and if you have them, some dice. 1 20-sided die and 1 6-sided die. The normal one, ideally for each player. But if you don't have dice, just Google roll 1d20 and you're good. As written, this adventure can be completed in 60 to 90 minutes, but it's fine to take breaks or run the adventure in shorter sessions or longer if desired. And it says to read the whole thing before playing, which I also recommend. The goal of this video is only to guide you through it and to provide a few more important tips that I feel should have been in here or expressed a little differently. Next, using the rules details all the rules from our super fun interactive tutorial with a few differences. So yes, the 20-sided die is the most used die in D&D. It is rolled whenever a character or creature tries to do something important. However, only when the important thing is risky in some way. Otherwise, they should just succeed on any feasible action. And if the action is not feasible at all, or would completely deviate from this agreed upon adventure and spoil the fun for you or another player, then don't even let the player roll for that. But when you do roll the d20, you add or subtract a number. Our tutorial character used bonuses from the 6 main abilities of D&D, while each of these character sheets in this packet list bonuses from a few of D&D's 18 skills. In either case, you compare the result to a target number called a difficulty class, and you succeed if your result meets or beats that DC. Quote, "In general, a difficulty class of 10, DC 10, is easy, while a DC of 15 is challenging. Most of the actions in this adventure are DC 10. The Dungeon Master can change DCs if circumstances make an action easier or harder. They can also make up their own DCs when the characters attempt actions not covered in the adventure, because the players will always attempt feasible actions not covered in the adventure." Now, for some reason, during combat, that DC is called AC for armor class. But the only actual difference is that when you succeed on this combat action to attack something, you roll another die to see how much damage you dealt with your attack. Usually a d4, a d6, or a d8, indicated by the weapon or spell plus a little bonus. The damage gets subtracted from a target's hit points or HP, knocking them out at 0 until they are healed, or in this adventure, until they regain 1 HP at the end of an encounter. And something I didn't go over in our tutorial, advantage and disadvantage. Anytime a character or creature has an obvious upper hand or drawback to their action, the DM can decide that they roll 2 d20s instead of 1. For advantage, use the higher result. For disadvantage, use the lower result. Here's a little secret. In my games, I almost always just use DC 15, and instead of raising or lowering the DC, I encourage the players to think creatively and figure out ways to gain advantage or avoid disadvantage. But for this introductory adventure, DC 10 would make a better default than 15. The next page, Running an Adventure, reiterates the flow of our tutorial, where the DM briefly describes a scene and prompts the players with the most important question in the DM's toolbox: what do you do? Then players discuss and take turns describing their actions. The DM determines if roles are required using the rules we just talked about and summarizes the result, pushing the story forward for better or for worse. Now, before we summarize the encounters of this adventure, let's check out the tips for dungeon masters and tips for players. Rule 0, have fun. It's fine if everyone agrees to change the rules as long as doing so means the game is more fun for everyone. Excellent. Be supportive. The players and DM are all on the same team. I love that. Use yes and or no but. When they want to try something unexpected, try to say yes and then work their ideas into the story. If you have to say no to a player's idea, suggest options that let them do something similar. That's all good. But sometimes when, not if, when my players try unexpected stuff, I like to just roll for yes or no, or flip a coin. That way, I'm not deciding, so it's less likely to feel adversarial, and even as the DM, I get to be surprised by the outcome. And when it comes to incorporating the players' ideas, I like to have them detail the world. For example, if they ask a creature or a non-player character for their name, but I didn't make a note of it, I just let someone else in the group come up with a name and write it down. And one more crucial DM tip from me. When a player asks something odd, like, how strong is the rope that my character has? It's always best to just respond with this question: what are you trying to do? Because only if you know what they really want can you then decide whether or not the action is feasible. Tips for players. If your players are new to D&D, definitely read these aloud before you start the game. Be a good teammate, be supportive, and think about your character's actions. That's a good one, because D&D is not like a video game. You can try almost anything, so really think about what you, or more specifically, your character, would do in each situation. But always, if one person's fun would ruin someone else's fun, or make them uncomfortable in any way, pause the game and just discuss how to move forward in a way that is fun for everyone, knowing that in the long term, if people from the same group have conflicting goals or preferences on how the game should be played, they'll just need to find or form another group that agrees with their style. Now, here's the Peril in Pinebrook adventure. Summary. The characters find a newborn dragon and must return the infant to its lair. The lair, however, is under attack by hostile forces. As the DM, you'll present the challenges the characters face as they take the baby dragon home. Cool premise. From there, this adventure introduction gives you boxes of text to read aloud to the players, describing how you should present the character sheets, how you should fill them in together, and how the game works according to all the rules we just talked about. Easy. But one helpful tip that I skipped earlier: if you have more than 4 players, they can just change the names and descriptions on a duplicate character sheet so that they'll have unique characters with similar abilities and equipment. Now, starting the adventure. This is like Encounter 0. Read aloud the box text describing the character's home village and their duty to patrol the forest with guard captain Emma Cole, who says, "I've not patrolled with any of you before. Tell me a little about yourselves," prompting the players to name and describe their characters. This section on role-playing offers additional questions you can ask and mentions how the players can speak in character or just paraphrase how their character responds. But hear this. My best tip for this encounter is to make Captain Emma Cole at least a little weird. Yeah, she seems kinda too cool and stoic here, but if these players are new to role-playing, they're doing it for the first time, you must set the tone that it's okay to feel a little weird and be silly. We're pretending to be elves over here, man. So maybe she has a goofy voice or messy hair or clothes or smells kind of funny, anything to break the ice. Then after a few minutes, move to Encounter 1, Not So Fearsome Dragon, which begins with a not so great lesson for new DMs in my opinion. There's box text describing a subtle sound and calling for a DC 10 perception check from each player to identify where it's coming from. But if they all fail, the captain just gives them the information anyway because they need this information to find the baby dragon and for the adventure to proceed. So here's the deal. If you're playing a pre-planned adventure, never lock the adventure behind a dice roll. And remember that it is almost never fun for the players when their heroes all fail at something and then they just watch as some literal NPC succeeds at the same task they could not do. So I would do it like this. Have them all roll for it, but whoever rolls highest succeeds, no matter the result. Or better yet, since it doesn't make sense for a character to flex their ears and listen harder, just don't make them roll for this. The fun part here is taking a few minutes to interact with this baby dragon, studying it to gain more information, trying to feed it, trying to speak to it, or play with it, and looking for signs of where it came from. Moving into Encounter 2, Living Icicles, which gets it correct this time. Just saying that the characters easily find the trails that lead to the mountain and immediately pushing the story into our first combat with 2 to 5 living icicles depending on the number of characters. And I love how simply they present these monsters. Armor class 10, hit points 7 each, a claw attack 1d20 plus 2, and a 1d6 plus 0 for damage. The box text here helps you explain combat to the players, and the taking turns section just says to let the players go first, clockwise from your left, and the icicles go on your turn. Easy. Then there's reminders about narrating the scene and helpful tips about distributing treasure from the leather backpack they find, as well as tips for healing injured characters with spells and investigating what the heck those monsters were. Encounter 3, A Dangerous Lair, is fantastic. Chalk drawings on the cave walls hint at what other monsters might lie ahead, and beyond, there is genuine darkness. Yeah, in case you don't know, in official D&D, most characters can quite easily see in the dark, which in my opinion eliminates one of the easiest ways for the DM to create exciting tension. But these simplified characters are written to need the torches they just looted from that backpack. I love that. But anyway, this encounter has 3 challenges: climbing icy walls, a magical ice mirror with a password, and ice slides down into the lair. Essentially, each one is surpassed by a combination of DC 10 rolls, equipment from their packs, and the dragon language handout, or other creative solutions. This is a game of imagination, and you must reward creativity. Also, if you're short on time for this adventure, you could easily cut out 1 or 2 of these challenges, or reduce the number of living icicles in the last encounter, or reduce the hit points of the monsters they are about to face. In Encounter 4, Dragon Eggs and Soaring Silver, the box text describes 2 large dragon eggs, 2 creepy monsters, and combat that works just like the previous one. But when it ends, the baby dragon climbs into the nest and the mama dragon returns. What is happening here? Conclusion. There's bullet points for how to handle this confrontation without letting the player characters get themselves into serious trouble, then a reward of small shiny diamonds and of the baby dragon itself, with the mother wanting it to be raised among the village. She promises to watch over the village and presents a future quest. Now, be sure to like this video if you found it helpful, and check out the videos on your screen for help making a complete, non-simplified D&D character, or for making a genuinely simple character in a similar game based on D&D where they can't see in the dark. Please consider joining the amazing Bob World Builder patrons who make all this possible, and keep building.